really find the divine in water.
And the woods is where I find the divine for me. It's a great place to just connect.
I see him in my wife. My wife shows me a lot of God through her actions. So
watching a gorgeous sunset.
I see a lot of it in nature. I do a lot of walking.
When people are at their best, I see divine in the world, yeah.
Yeah, like my grandma, I can see it in her.
I guess I find more divinity in nature than I do in anything else.
Hi, I'm Ann Thompson, and welcome to In Search for the Divine. We've got a great show for you today. We'll start by talking with a man who survived the Second World War when the divine made its presence known during the arduous Bataan Death March. We'll get a lesson in reading music Tibetan style. And we'll hear from a sister who is so passionate about justice that she was willing to spend time behind bars. And when we return, we'll be inside Crondelet Center, where we'll meet a woman who has learned a lot about the divine by throwing things. Hi, welcome back. We're inside the Potter's house, and this is Sister Jean Nelson.
Morning.
So, Sister Jean, tell me what you've learned about the divine from throwing pots.
Well, I was talking about the analogy of creation, that when you form a pot, it's like the formation of a person. The shaping, the trials and tribulations they go through are similar to the fire in the kiln. And when the person is mature, like the pot, all the life experiences that they have gone through forms them into the beautiful people they become. Some people go through a lot in their lives, and I think the pot kind of takes on all the firing and everything all at once. But I think the analogy of the fire and the formation is what I see in making pottery as far as the divine is concerned.
Mm-hmm. That's a great analogy, especially for our first story, which is about a prisoner of war who survived the Bataan Death March. Check it out.
During World War II, Sergeant Ken Porwell, a tank driver from Minnesota, found himself fighting in the Philippines. After months of unrelenting combat and without much needed replacements and supplies from the U.S., his officers decided to avert a bloodbath by surrendering to Japanese forces. The POWs would become participants in an awful experience known as the Bataan Death March. It began on April 10, 1942. While the experience would push Ken to the brink of human endurance, he now sees that it was punctuated with moments of the divine.
On the second day that I'm walking, I realized I'm with 4 other young men that I'd gone to high school with. And even though the order was no talking, we made an agreement to hang together. And if somebody got a problem, maybe we got help. Well, before the day is out, the biggest man gets a malaria attack. And his fever goes high, and so he needs help by one on either side of him guiding him down the road. And after an hour or two of this, then his fever turned to a chill, and he began shaking as if he were going to freeze to death in the tropic sun. And then he really needed help. And after a bit of this, he himself said, thinking of the welfare of his friends, "Look, guys, you won't make this walk if you have to drag me along. You've got to drop me in the ditch." Now, he said this knowing that the Japanese order was, if you can't walk, you die. Just very simple. And we then argued with him a little, and later he again said, look, fellas, you've got to drop me in the ditch. And we agreed, yes. We're to the point of where we can't do this. We'll all go in the ditch. And I'm helping him at the time, and I'm apologizing to him for our friendship coming to this kind of conclusion. And he says to me, forget it, Ken. I'll just have to find another way. I said, wow, he hasn't given up. He hasn't quit. He's looking for tomorrow. But we let him go. Well, after 8 days of this, we reached the city of San Fernando. On the second morning I'm there, I wake up at sunrise and I just ache all over. So I roll over to my other side and I look, and there's this guy we dropped in the ditch. His name was Jim McComas. I says, Jim, what are you doing here? He says, lying in the dirt just like you are. I said, how did you get here? He says, I walked just the same way you did. I said, Jim, stop competing and tell me what happened that allowed you to walk. He says, when I went in the ditch, not when I put him in the ditch, but when I went in the ditch, he says, I looked up ahead and I saw a culvert and I crawled into it. And I slept off the malaria attack, and the second day when more Americans come by, he says, I crawled out and joined them. After we got into the area where the fighting hadn't been for a while, the Philippine women had moved back into their barrios and had lined the road with cans of water and were handing out packets of food and rice wrapped in the banana leaves. And the Japanese soldiers took offense to that, so they kicked the cans over and they chased the women, and those that didn't chase, well, they beat them. And then when the Japanese soldiers turned their back, the women start throwing the packets to the Americans. Then the second little barrio I walked through, the woman was standing in the window of her house, and in the tropics, the windows are no glass, they're just open areas. And she has a packet in her hand, and she's about to throw it. And I think, hey, I'm going to get this one. And the Japanese soldier alongside of me raised his rifle and shot her down out of the window before she could throw it. So I said, Ken, quit looking at these women. Quit asking them to give up their life for a lousy handful of rice. That's not right. That really went to my core. I just really, I don't know. I can put it if I can put it into words, but it changed my whole future outlook. That somebody in this world cared about me, and they're willing to give part of their life. On the first bridge, during the building of the first bridge, I come down with a yellow jaundice, and I got weaker than I had been, and I couldn't really do the job. But the officer gave me the option of staying there with them and doing light duty or going back to that terrible prison camp. I says, I'll stay right here. I'll do your light duty. And my light duty was to go walk about 3 blocks into the village where there was a big well. And the second time I go to the well, there's a pound of brown sugar with a little note saying, take 3 spoons a day, it'll help your yellow jaundice. I says, wow, somebody around here cares whether I live or die. And each time I went to that well, there was another gift. Again, I thought, my goodness. Thank you, God, for whoever it is that wants me to live. And it gave me an incentive to rethink the evaluation of myself.
We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear more of Ken's story and how the divine inspired Ken to survive. Welcome back to In Search of the Divine as we continue with Ken Porwell's incredible story of the Bataan Death March.
And one of our friends by the name of John Faulkner decided that he was too sick. He was just aching and sick and tired, and he didn't want to fight the fight anymore. I just want to die, he says. And when we went to try to talk him out of that, he would have wouldn't listen. No, I just want to die. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And so he's put into a zero ward. And so whatever you have is up for taking. And you end up naked laying on split bamboo. And one of our guys said, "John, you look so miserable." He says, "I'm going to leave you my half a blanket." And he'd been carrying this thing around for some time already, several months, and it's full of stickers and burrs and body lice and maybe even a bed bug or two. And John accepts the blanket. And 4, 5, 6 days later, we haven't heard that John had died, so a couple of us go back to see what's going on. And there he sits with a blanket around him, and he says, "Oh, feeling better, John?" "No, not really," he says. "No." But he says, "You know, that man gave me his most precious possession. He thought that much of me, that he gave me his most precious thing." And I says, "Wow, I better think better of myself." And I decided I want to live. I said, "Have you told the doctor about it?" No, he had. So we got hold of a doctor, and he convinced the doctor that he had changed his mind, he wants to live. So they moved him out of there to a place to where people would help him. And he lived. He came home, got married, had family, taught school for 20 years out in California. Because someone gave him a scroungy old blanket, half a blanket. And now when I talk to high schoolers, I talk about attitude, but talk about how 90% of your life, or 10% of your life, is what happens to you. And 90% of your life is what you do about what happens to you. And it's your decisions to make. So if you're having a problem, it's your problem, and you've made your problem. So get with it.
Ken's amazing story stands as testament that even in the most horrendous of situations, there can be great love and kindness. And somehow, it seems the divine will reach out to us when we need it, if we just choose to recognize it. Next, we'll get a lesson in reading music, Tibetan style.
Welcome back. So, sister, what does it mean when we say you're a sister? And how does that impact your personal spirituality?
Well, I'm a sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet, St. Paul Province. I have been in this community for close to 60 years. I entered this community because of the beautiful women that taught me in grade school and high school. It influenced my life, and so that's why I became a sister of St. Joseph.
So how does making pots influence your spirituality?
The formation, the working with the earth, the dirt. I'm definitely a person who sees God in people and in animals and in everything that grows or is. I am very, very much down to earth, let's put it that way. I'm not a person that goes around and talks about my spirituality very much. It's very deep inside me. but it's a common thing. It's not I'm not up there someplace. I'm down here at the earth.
You ever teach anybody how to throw a pot? When we come back, I'm going to give it a try. But first, check this out. Chanting. Many people use it as a way to connect with the divine. At this Tibetan monastery, the monks chant daily, either individually or together. The musical notation for Tibetan chants is quite different from the musical scoring the West is used to, but as we recently learned, it includes the words, instrumentation, and melodies.
We go down.
Yeah.
Listening to live Tibetan chanting is like having a subwoofer turned up really loud next to your ribcage, but more soothing and relaxing. Stay tuned for a Nun with a Record right after this message. If you pass this petite, frail, white-haired lady on the street, you probably wouldn't think twice about her. But spend even a moment with her, and you discover a delightful radical with a penchant for justice.
The Bible is radical. That's why you don't hear it preached too much in churches. That's where I base my life on. I like Jesus.
Sister Rita Steinhagen's early years were spent in northern Minnesota as a medical technician, but fate had something else in mind.
I love the work. I love hospital work, and I loved what I was doing. And because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the age of 37, I knew if the doctor told me probably I'd be in a wheelchair in 10 years.
With her physical outlook dim, Sister Rita helped open a free store in a seamy area of Minneapolis.
It turned to be a warming house for the drug addicts and the winos and the runaways. And what I learned from all that is, I learned that they are us. We are all in the same family, same human family, and we all have the same wants. They want someone to respect them, to love them, and to be concerned about them. Someone that cares if they get up in the morning or not.
Operating the free store, Sister saw a big problem.
There was just hundreds of them and hundreds of the runaways. It was a big problem down there. But luckily, one of them said to me one day, "Why don't you get us a place to stay?" And I thought, who'd ever thought of it? The runaways asking for, get us a place to stay.
The result was the bridge. It's been helping runaway youth since the early 60s. After that, it was a home for battered women, and then to El Paso, Texas to learn Spanish. That led her to Nicaragua.
There's a religious group, activist group who were there. They says, we've got to get other people from the United States to come down and live in the war zones. Because we're here, they don't shell. So we'll invite people from the United States to come down and live in the war zones. Now that's a crazy idea. So my part there is to live in that little village, keep my eyes and ears open, and to report any counter activity. And that's what I did for 8 months. And it was another experience that has changed my life forever. Changed my life forever. And you're not safe no matter where you were down there. Not safe. Any side, any road you go on, you had no idea if you're going to go over, be blown up because they string booby traps right across the road, or you're going to be ambushed. They just come in and ambush you. And I thought, where is God in all this? Where is God? And then I think of Julian of Norwich, who says, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And I believe that. And I believe that. But it certainly didn't erase my sadness then, or even my sadness today.
She left Nicaragua to work at the Center for Victims of Torture in Minneapolis. While there, she also became involved with a group of political activists protesting at the School of the Americas in Fort Benning, Georgia, the very place she believed many of Latin America's Contras received their training. While there, she got arrested. Then she did it again. The second arrest earned her a trial.
And then I turned to the judge himself, and I said, Your Honor, you know, I haven't been in prison before, but I probably get sentenced today. But I'll tell you something. I am more afraid of what's going on in our country when peaceful people can get sentenced to 6 months in a federal penitentiary for peacefully just asking our government to not fund something that atrocious. I'm more scared of this, what's going on in this courtroom. Well, didn't help any. I got 6 months. Well, I got sentenced on my 70th birthday. On my 70th birthday, can you imagine it?
Prison ministry was not something Sister Rita would have ever imagined.
Now, I just got there in the room, and 3 or 4 women came in smiling, and hi, sister, hi, sister. Now, here I am with khaki-colored pants on and a big shirt, you know, they're all XXXs, and another shirt. And God, you know, I was a sister. We've been waiting for you. We knew you were coming. In a sense, it's very boring. What do you do? Now, I only had 6 months there. There were women down there with 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, up to 20 years. It is such a waste. Those women should be home taking care of their families. And most are in for some type of a drug thing. It makes much more sense to send those women to a drug program for a year or 2. It'd be much cheaper than down there.
Today, Sister Rita is in her late 70s, and while her body may be frail, her dancing blue eyes tell you something about passion. As for the MS that started Sister Rita on her path, only God knows.
Justice. What is justice? Fairness, treating people equally with respect for life, respect for just them as a human being, period. Everybody has the right to, like they say, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, really. A place to live, enough to eat, and it's a full-time job. Peace activists will never be out of work. It's continual. And I can't think of anything better to do with your life, really.
Gina, I think it's not centered.
Well, I think maybe it isn't centered. And I think the first step in making pottery is to center that clay.
Kind of a metaphor for life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you use your whole energy trying to center that clay.
Uh-oh. Well, you know what I think? I think, to borrow a phrase from a nun I met in Ireland, she's using gifts God didn't give her. I hope you enjoyed our show, and tune in next time. And until then, keep your eyes open, because you never know when the divine is going to be present in your life.
I says, wow, somebody around here cares whether I live or die.
I learned that they are us. We are all in the same family, same human family. And we all have the same wants. They want someone to respect them, to love them, and to be concerned about them. Someone that cares if they get up in the morning or not.
Feeling better, John? No, not really, he says. No. But he says, you know, that man gave me his most precious possession. He thought that much of me, that he gave me his most precious thing. And I says, wow, I better think better of myself. And I decided I want to live.
I am more afraid of what's going on in our country when peaceful people can get sentenced to 6 months in a federal penitentiary for peacefully just asking our government to not fund something that atrocious. I'm more scared of this, what's going on in this courtroom